So welcome everyone. My name is Zach Forrest. I'm the business education coordinator here at Push Press, and I run a program called PushStart. And we try to do these monthly digital events where we bring in subject matter experts to talk about different aspects of the fitness space and the fitness industry and how it pertains to running your business more better. Better. And today I have Mr. John Singleton on the call with me. And he previously did a part one to this series. This is going to be a three-part series. Part one, you should have access to in PushStart at pushstart.pushpress.com. If you have trouble finding that, just let me know and I'll make sure you get it. So even if you happen to get off the call early or if you can't listen to the entire thing, you will have access to this recording in the future. I'm super excited to learn about this, John. HYROX seems to be growing super fast. Based off our last call, you went over like the what is HYROX and how it differs from CrossFit. And today we're going to learn a little bit more about your take on how to implement a successful HYROX program in a gym business, correct?
Yeah, that's completely correct.
Awesome. Well, in that case, I'm super stoked to learn. Take it away. Go for it.
So just like as a very brief overview of what we covered last time, it's necessary. What is HYROX? What is this race that people are starting to hear about more? And it originated in Europe, which is probably why we were some of the early adopters, just because culturally tend to see it more. And it's a fixed race, and this is probably one of the big differences between this and CrossFit. You move from this unknown and unknowable element to a known and knowable element, where you'll be doing a run, so 8 series of 1K run, and after each 1K run, you then do a station. The station then is from ski erg, row. They're all kind of movements that we do quite often in CrossFit. And I think the big component is there's no barbell or heavy lifting and no advanced gymnastics. So the argument it comes a bit more, well, typically it's more accessible for people to be able to compete because they're not asked to do these complex movements. And the popularity of it, as we discussed, is just booming. They now predict this calendar year to have 650,000 people participating around the world. And there's actually a big event happening in Las Vegas this weekend where some of our team have gone. So the people, if you haven't heard about it already, I mean, most people being in the functional fitness space will have started to hear about it. And one of the reasons why we started this HYROX program is we were getting questions about it. How do you implement HYROX? One, from the athlete side, as we tend to work with high-level athletes. Then actually we found, as we offered an affiliate programming, and we've offered that for around 5 years, some of the gyms would start to ask, okay, we're interested in HYROX. How do we start to implement this? And this is where our HYROX programming for affiliates has grown. And I think one key point in this is HYROX is becoming popular in Globo gyms and lots of other facilities, but our specialty and our roots have always been in CrossFit gyms, and they're quite a unique setup in the sense, like a Globo gym, they just go out and buy 12 runners, they just build this huge space, they have all these resources, whereas actually within the micro gyms or the CrossFit gyms, the space that you utilize, the equipment that you have available, all has to be thought of. And so a lot of these programs don't often cater for that, and that's where we kind of come in to adapt for the micro gym. So as you mentioned, this particular webinar is looking more how to plan and prepare and kind of set the foundations up for success in the gym if a gym owner is thinking of implementing HYROX. So actually the first point is to gauge interest. And I know it seems like an obvious step, but actually knowing, sometimes for big companies, they will often do huge amounts of market research before they launch a new product. There's millions of dollars spent in this world of market research. And one of the main reasons is it's so you don't waste time, or you can spend your time efficiently before starting to make all these processes work. And I think actually for gyms, this is really important as well to literally ask your members. I mean, the community is usually smaller, like in the hundreds, but either being able to speak one to one, maybe the members who you have that relationship with, or actually sending out a survey, an anonymous survey to go through. And this is what we prepared, just a simple example. It's really just knowing, do people know about HYROX? Are they likely to attend a HYROX class? Is there something specific about HYROX that's appealing? How many times a week, which is obviously a really important question. The days that they would be interested in attending an actual event, and then just leaving questions open. And I think this sets the foundation if you're going to start implementing it or not. Obviously, if no one's interested in HYROX in your gym, then the uptake and the popularity might be a lot harder to drive. Whereas if you have a group of members that are keen and interest, well, there's already like a captive audience that you can start that process with. One thing we mentioned last time, don't necessarily mention here, was this idea of a bit more of a Venn diagram that was on the previous slides. However, we tend to see like we have this, if we take CrossFit as one of the bubbles, we also then have running and HYROX. And with the runners who might not, CrossFit might be a bit more of an extreme end for that because it's more strength based. Actually, HYROX can be a great buy into moving towards a strength because a lot of runners just aren't used to squatting, having to use machines. And that's where, maybe being able to invite them and also test with local run groups to see if actually they've got a lot of interest because a lot of runners resonate with HYROX as a certain challenge, as we saw with obstacle course racing and different aspects there. And I think that actually CrossFit gyms have a huge amount of value to offer within the station work for, especially for runners.
I love this, how you give a sample. I think I mean, this can open up a whole other can of worms in relevance to business operations. I think a lot of gym owners don't regularly poll or communicate on an official channel with their constituents, with their customers, with their clients. And I think a lot of gym owners or coaches would probably just go talk to their members and get like a feel through conversation about whether or not the program would do well. And I'm totally on board with you, John, in the sense that like this official word going out is going to provide a stronger data point to provide conviction in the decision of implementing the program. So I love that you have. Is there a way we can get this sample?
Yeah, so one thing, there's a few things through the presentation that we can offer. We've actually got that I'll go into about simulation, but for people who are on the call, we'll be able to send out certain documents to them in order to be able to provide this resource.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Thanks.
But and I think it's a really valid point is that companies will literally spend millions trying to get access to relevant people to find out if a new product is going to be relevant. Whereas for gym owners, actually, it's completely free. You can just use a Google form or one of the other free resources, be able to send it out to your members, and you've got this hugely valuable information like completely free of charge for just a simple bit of work, and it can really inform a lot of decisions. The reason is, you might think something's going to work, but unfortunately, that's not always the case. And so, getting that feedback before you've gone through the process of implementing it can be useful, not just for HYROX.
Absolutely.
This is a ratio that we created. Obviously, equipment concerns are really important. Um, and actually, ironically, the photo of a prowler is probably the hardest piece of equipment for CrossFit gyms to be able to implement because we're used to using it just as accessory work. This is a gym where the athletes train off, and there's literally a line, just like one line down the gym that you can utilize the prowler. And so space concerns when doing the classes are typically around the prowler. It's called a sled pull, sled push stations in HYROX. And we offer like scaling and substitution options for classes typically, but this is like the ratio that we have put together where we think that, okay, in order to start HYROX classes, this is like the best starting point. And we've done this as a ratio. So we've got one ski erg, and this is per 4 athletes. So if you have 4 athletes in the class, it's useful to have 4 ski ergs. If you want 8 athletes, then having 2 ski ergs, 12 athletes, 3 ski ergs, etc. And that's how this ratio builds on. A row, a sled to push, a sled to pull with the rope, one wall ball per 2, a kettlebell per athlete, sandbag per 2 athletes. And then some form of run station is useful. I know that in winter it gets tricky in some locations, and it's just not financially feasible to have so many run machines. However, biking works as a really good substitute here with athletes, the Concept 2 bike. And then like as a rough space allocation, it's around 10 people, like 150 square meters is needed, and then kind of can build up on there to be able to run the classes. One thing that's not in here, but again we can send out is there's a really nice floor layout. So some of the gyms that we work with who are on affiliates, they had an open gym area, and they've converted that into more of a HYROX area now. And this is one thing we're starting to see really trend, is that the HYROX classes in CrossFit gyms are becoming very popular. It's a fashionable movement at the moment. Um, I know people just maybe want to try something new, get involved, and so some of the gyms have leaned into that a bit more and created HYROX specific areas. And they're quite fun setups because you put a big piece of AstroTurf in the middle, and then around that you can build weather stations. So it's actually easier to fit a large group of people into a smaller space with a bit more of an efficient setup. But again, we can share that with people who are listening after.
Those layouts. So are you saying because it's just like a straight line across, it's easier to organize people into a more efficient or a tight space, like you said?
Exactly. So if
Yeah.
we take the photo that we've got up on screen now, the gym's probably around like 30, 40 meters long, but
Mhm.
it's just one strip of AstroTurf that's running through. So obviously, like when you then do a class, it's harder to get people doing the prowler stations. Whereas when you create this like a rectangle type format, you can have people doing the burpee broad jump, the farmer's carry,
Ah,
the lunges, because actually you need like some stations going back and forth, and that's where that space, thinking about the space becomes important.
I mean,
And
that's
again,
just important relative to the athlete experience. I don't. I'm the savvy gym owner will understand like how you lay out the equipment for the class is going to impact your ability to run the class well. Is going to impact the enjoyability of doing the program. So that makes a
yes,
ton of sense. Yeah.
and the other thing is as well, the variance within HYROX is obviously more manageable, more minimal compared to CrossFit. And that's why I think CrossFit gyms with a huge open floor space work really well, because you might bring machines in, barbells in, keep changing things around. One of the big things we actually recommend for CrossFit gyms typically is to build a wall rig rather than build a rig in the center of the floor.
Right.
And the big reason for that is it just allows you to be more flexible with what you're able to do. Whereas in this HYROX space, you know more what you're going to be doing. So you can kind of prelay, say, 10-meter distances, and this is where you might be doing your lengths of burpee broad jumps, farmer's carry, prowler, all of those things. So you can have a bit more of a standardized setup and then just know the flow from there. But this is more for people, I think this is like you don't need to do this straight away. If the engagement and excitement's there about the classes and you've been building it for a while, then I think it's a consideration. But definitely at the start, it's not something that you necessarily need to do. You can actually do a lot with what 99% of CrossFit gyms have available.
Cool. We did have a question Um, Julia in the chat asked, "Do you have any suggestion for pushing and pulling sleds on the floor? Any like, do you put carpet on the bottom of the sled, or do you use any type of slides? Is there a standard piece of equipment that's used at the events, perhaps?"
So at the events, they have carpet.
Mm.
There's so a big equipment company called Center has a partnership with HYROX now, and they have carpets that they push the sleds on. I think for gyms with rubber floors, using either prowlers or sleds that have wheels, there's the torque tank systems. That's an easy solution as well. Again, it requires a new piece of equipment. You are right. Putting some people have put like carpet on the bottom to make it easier to slide. Some people just use lighter weights on the rubber floor. The trouble is it kind of damages the rubber floor after a while. There are a few workarounds that you can do. There's obviously, the perfect solution is having AstroTurf and putting a sled on. Um, but these workarounds can work for a period. One thing that actually works as a good substitution in the HYROX for the sled push is doing bike. There's no bike in the HYROX already, and you can get that bit more high intensity feeling that you would from there. So the bike's often a good substitute for that, and then the sled pull by doing rope climbs or even pull-ups. Again, it's not a perfect substitution, but it's something that can get a bit of a different stimulus within there.
Cool. Awesome.
Um, so now we start to look a bit more. So this is kind of the setup, and now we start to look a bit more at the programming. And this was something that was interesting, and a lot of questions we got is because CrossFit gyms are very used to having, say, a conditioning class or a longer class. And obviously, HYROX is more geared towards the endurance side of programming, except it does need to be a bit more specific than your classic conditioning class. And this is where the planning and the programming comes in. This is like a sample of what we have in our HYROX affiliate programming. So you can see we go through like a classic summary and timeline, the equipment that you will need, useful videos, the warm up, and what you can see here will introduce a strength part because it is important for HYROX, even though that is more running based and more endurance based than CrossFit. The strength component is still there. So we have strength EMOM. We'll then go through these typically a bit longer AMRAPs, and again using the terminology that we've used in CrossFit. We've got EMOMs, AMRAPs, stuff that everyone's used to seeing, except we're just focusing it a bit more through the endurance side. Again, this is something we can send out after the call, so I won't bother everyone too much with just reading out text from the slide. This is training one, I believe. We've got 3 days here, so the next day, you can see, we've included a bit of a partner workout. We've got some plyometrics. And then the final day, again, strength bias to the back squats, another EMOM in this 24 minute time domain. And again, we run all the classes based off a 60-minute class. It's just the most common class time. So it tends to work quite well. And whereas in CrossFit, you might have a focus more towards gymnastic or a strength part. Within this HYROX component, we're just leaning more in towards the endurance side of things.
Ring leg curls.
Yeah.
Is that like laying on your back and curling like with your heels in the rings? Like what is
Yeah,
that?
for like just hamstring strength.
Whew, whew. Okay, I can like imagine what that feels like. That's good. All right, cool.
This is the nice thing about this is it can add like a fresh perspective. We've really enjoyed the programming process and the thought process of this because it forces you to think a bit differently. Like a lot of the accessory and strength accessory will be tailored around running, making sure that the hamstrings, the calves are prepared for the increased volume that the athletes will do running. And this is probably the biggest thing for coaches to watch out for, is that increase. Athletes in a classic CrossFit, we don't tend to do that much mileage each week. And then for people jumping into HYROX, that's the biggest management of it, is that running volume and that running load. And this accessory work we found can really help safeguard athletes when they're increasing that.
That makes total sense. Yeah, that's great. That's great that that's built into the programming that you deliver. I love that.
And this is another question we get, is about how should I integrate this into my normal programming? And this is why we like the strength component, is that actually it can be a complete program for athletes who want to do that themselves. They do get this strength component from it. It's not as in depth as the CrossFit, but they're still kind of covering all aspects of fitness. So next we move on to the coaching side, and the stations are probably where I think the CrossFit coaches are the most experienced and can offer a lot of value. And I think that there's a big opportunity for the coaches to learn and understand more about the running side of HYROX. And this is actually where we recommend maybe starting to link up with coaches of the local running groups to be able to get out into the community more. One thing we used to do at our gym was, each month we'd bring in a subject matter expert. And the perfect example here for HYROX is having someone come in who knows about running, to be able to, for the coaches, maybe looking at a physio who knows about injury prevention for runners. So I think there's all these opportunities actually to get coaches and get the team excited about learning something new and exploring that.
I was on mute. I love the fact that the that running technique is right at the top. I think there is a huge gap when it comes to technical expertise in running specifically. I see a lot of CrossFit coaches that are willing to coach the Olympic lifts, the most complex weightlifting movements that we have, and even high level gymnastic stuff, relatively high level, right? And then when it comes to running, you rarely see actual coaching on running, like mechanics and technique, posture, breathing, foot strike, blah blah blah. And I think that's probably one of the biggest things you could implement if you were alongside a HYROX program, would be the the emphasis on running, which is the basis of human modalities, right? So I love seeing that up there as a geek coach myself. I love that.
Yeah, and also, in classic CrossFit gym, it's like people just go out for a 400-meter run. We were guilty of that as well, but we don't necessarily dive too much into it. I think it was when Castro introduced wall walks into the CrossFit games, and everyone's like, "Whoa, we just did these as accessory." They're kind of something you did at the end of the class, and then implementing it into a workout requires you to look at it a bit more in depth and get a better understanding of the movement as well. And then also HYROX do have their own education, own certificates for people who want to look more in depth there. The next stage is then, set the foundations. There's a established interest. You have an idea of how to program. There's the education of the coaches. And next obviously becomes marketing. This is very generalized, and each gym is obviously very specific, but here are some examples that we've taken. Select a pilot group. So people who've maybe done the survey, start to get them in the class, start to build up some hype. We'd also recommend starting smaller rather than go all in. Maybe start with one to three classes a week, see how that builds, start to see if the waitlist becomes, and then start expanding from there, rather than going, okay, 5 days a week for the morning, we're just doing HYROX. I think that small build is it's very important. Yeah, and I also think this is a really interesting point, is that probably a lot of members will be maybe anxious about trying something new. So this idea of hosting kind of an intro session or some Q&A to get people through. What we'll see in the next stage is something a bit bigger than that, but I think is really useful for majority of gyms. Um, part of the marketing strategy is educating about the benefits of it. So, there's endurance on focus, people who've maybe conquered, maybe someone's been wanted to compete for a while, and this could be a good opportunity for them to do it. A more targeted marketing. We actually provide some resources for people who've signed up as well, who want to advertise on their social media, the in-gym promotions, demos, testers.
You mean resources for people that signed up for this call in order to market HYROX, like the
Yeah,
new
so
program?
so
Oh, that's
so
awesome.
people, so people who sign up to the HYROX affiliate, we have like a marketing package for to help with social media posts, just to alleviate some of the stress of gym owners. It's just a free resource that we offer there as well.
That's perfect. Awesome. Yeah.
This is also one that's you so HYROX have that, just like CrossFit have their own affiliation. HYROX have their own affiliation. I believe there's something around 5,000 affiliates now, which is growing quite quickly. And in the same way as CrossFit, it puts you on the HYROX map. And I do think there's some benefit in the sense you're kind of part of the brand. In the same way people hold an affinity for CrossFit, people also hold an affinity for HYROX, and maybe you know, different people in the area who would maybe search for that can start to see you pop up. This is very location dependent. The HYROX events need to be in a big city because of the venue. Most 99% of HYROX events are indoors, which is why you'll always see them in Vegas or New York, wherever it may be. They need a huge venue in order that you can run inside a big enough loop. And that tends to be why they're in the bigger cities, also for population density. One thing that's been really interesting is seeing how people get together and want to go away for a weekend. Lots of people in Miami, people coming from all over as in Wodapalooza this weekend. I mean, people come from literally all around the world to do this event. They want to, have something to train for, be able to compete, but they also want to enjoy Miami, see a bit of the sights. And HYROX is perfect for this because it's literally only a 90-minute event. So going to New York for the weekend, you have your 90-minute event. Maybe the whole gym goes. Maybe you can build something around it to get that excitement, and also have a bit of a focus for the classes. You know, say building to a New York event or using New York, but building to an event in 3 months, and just to start getting the momentum of the class and having a bit of a focus. It just always helps having a focused event that you're building towards. And this next point number 7, I think is something really useful, and I think that gyms who do this well can, one, bring new communities into their own gym, and two, really start off the hype around a possible new HYROX class are doing well. This is create your own event. It's called a HYROX simulation. Maybe it's a Saturday or one day of the week. You finish up with a barbecue, and there's a lot that goes into creating a successful simulation. And this is one of the documents that we've also put together. We created an ebook. Previously, this is actually our second ebook where we look at how to run a successful HYROX simulation for your gym. Um, and what we've done here is, like, if someone signs up after the call, we'll send out this ebook free of charge to all people who are there. And I believe, yes, and then this kind of takes us to the the end of the slide. But yeah, I think this a simulation HYROX sim or HYROX event is something that's really great way of being able to engage the community and members.
Have you worked with gyms to help them put on this event, or do you have any success stories from this? Like, do you have an idea of what, I mean, it would be completely market dependent and how much they pump it up and all that stuff, but um, are these events typically used to test whether or not it's going to be viable at your gym, or is it like, hey, we've made the decision, we're going to implement this program, this is like a free trial experience or something like that? Is it used as like a sales tool, as a marketing tool, or as a community builder, all of the above?
Yeah, so we work with there's a gym who work within Denmark, and they put on this HYROX simulation event, and they advertised it out. There's an event happening in Copenhagen in like 3 or 4 months, and they did this event a couple of months ago, so like 6 months before the event. And they started putting it out into the local running groups. And that's where this idea, it was just hugely popular. They ended up having like close to like 100 people just coming for this simulation to try it out. People who weren't necessarily members of the gym, but
Oh,
maybe wanted to see how to use the stations. A lot of, you've got to think that a lot of runners have never touched a ski erg, a rower, and so they don't just want to go into a HYROX event not having done that. And so that started to build like a really nice connection between, a community that they've not been able to access before and, um, their gym.
that makes total sense. That makes sense. Are you can you go to the next slide and actually explain real quick, because it'll tie into some good questions that we've had pop up in the chat in the Q&A. It says contact us for a HYROX program details. Can you speak a little bit about what you guys at the program offer versus what is there an official, quote unquote, official program that's offered by HYROX?
Yeah, exactly. So when you sign up for your HYROX affiliation, it's the model is very similar to CrossFit.
Okay.
So in CrossFit, you sign up to become an affiliate, and now they've obviously introduced CAP, like the CrossFit affiliate programming.
Yep.
HYROX, when you sign up to HYROX, they have what's called HYROX 365,
Okay.
which is their affiliate programming. Um, and in the same way, lots of gym owners choose to have a third party provider because there's just different styles of programming.
Right.
And I think one of the areas that we've tried to focus on was concentrating on the micro gyms, the gyms, the CrossFit gyms, this kind of more niche area maybe, but the sometimes the feedback from the 365 can be it focuses a lot on the Globo gym side of things, which is
Oh, that's
just a very different model to how we work. So that's probably the biggest difference that we've heard between their their kind of flagship programming and what we provide.
and that makes sense. Like they would put out programming that would go towards either franchise or big box gyms, because I have seen gyms, like we have a local chain here in Kansas City area, that has like a turf area that has laid out the sleds and the ropes and stuff like that in order to allow people to train for these events. So what you're saying is your programming caters more towards probably a CrossFit gym that is adding on a HYROX program, which I think would be the majority of the people that are on this call right now or viewing this. So that makes total sense. Are you good if I go through some of the questions, John?
Yeah, of course.
Awesome. So do affiliates have HYROX combo with CrossFit, or just a membership with HYROX only? I think we answered this in our first call, or we at least spoke about it. Nikki and a few other people were asking, like, what is the average charge for HYROX? And I know you're based in Europe, so it might be a little bit different. I would assume that that's a market dependent number, right?
Yeah, and it's sometimes not interesting, but it does very much depend. Like a kind of typical reply around this has been if you have other classes that are add-ons, say bodybuilding or some specific, maybe paying more for open gym, then it might make sense to also then have HYROX as an add-on. Whereas if all those things are included in one membership, then it probably makes more sense to integrate HYROX within that.
That makes sense to keep it consistent across your offerings.
Yeah, and I think the biggest revenue driver for gyms has been the addition of new members coming to try HYROX. So rather than charging more, um, more to do a HYROX class, it's actually just been the influx of new people who are excited to try it.
That makes total sense. I love that. Blythe asked, could you always have substitutions for certain equipment or movements and still be considered a HYROX gym? Is that allowed? I would
Yes,
think.
I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, again, it's very similar to CrossFit in the sense that there's a lot of flexibility in what you're able to do as a HYROX affiliate.
Yep. It's not a franchise. There's no hard and fast like rules like you must adhere to this. There might be
Yeah.
certain guidelines, but yeah, when it comes to programming or implementation, execution of the program, it's probably just as flexible as CrossFit style training. Um, We are already affiliated with HYROX. Where would I find the daily programming? I'm not sure if Anna was referring to the HYROX 365 or the program. I know we have you guys on Train, right? And
Yeah.
that's where you would go to find, you could request this in Intercom, and any way that you would add additional programming tracks in Train, Anna, is where you would be able to add or subscribe to the program. And on the follow-up email to this call, I will send out the link that will take you directly there. Um, let's see. Do we need to affiliate with HYROX in order to access your programming, John?
No. So it can be standalone. And as you say, one of the nice things is integrated within the system. So you don't have to do the actual work of putting the programming in.
Yep. Yep. It automatically loads into Train. Do you have is there a trial period for your programming?
That's something I actually need to confirm. I don't know if we have a 7-day free trial up at the moment, but I'd need to confirm that.
Okay, cool. So we're still working on getting that. Um, HYROX certifications, are they required for gyms who affiliate? I'm assuming Jenny is asking specifically about the coaching certifications or
Yeah, I
credentials.
don't believe so. So that's actually a difference, like from what we're used to in the CrossFit world, where you have to be a CrossFit level one. I don't believe you need to be a high rock certified coach in order to open a gym.
So in order to affiliate, and I think people just want to make sure before they do anything to upset upset the higher ups, they do need to affiliate in order to market classes branded as HYROX.
Yeah, so in order to be, yes, basically to become
Right.
a high rocks gym, you need to affiliate. So to use that, utilize that name or high rocks gym, however it may be, you need to affiliate.
Cool. And now I'm just seeing there's some great conversation about how to compensate coaches, and specifically some people are offering up like how they structure their membership stuff in the chat. This is pretty good. Do we have any statistics or metrics related to ROI? Melissa asked, and I'm assuming like, hey, what have some gyms seen as far as success stories from implementing a HYROX program? I don't have any on hand. This is still relatively new for us in the States. And when I say new, I mean like, hey, this is coming on our radar within the past 6 to 8 months, like as a thing, as opposed to like just a fad. John, do you have any insight as to like what you've seen
Mm,
gyms accomplish?
Like within the industry, not, but I also think because each gym is very much like a microcosm, like not working with these huge franchises who need to understand like tens of thousands of people's habits and moving between classes, that actually you can get a lot of information relevant to you by doing these surveys and doing these questionnaires. Because if you do this survey and people are going to be really interested, and maybe you can start putting that out more into the local community. There's so much valuable information that you can gain if this is likely to be a success or not. And so I think understanding like your market and people who are living within the vicinity
Mhm.
is actually, like a really valuable place to start to see if you're likely to get much traction.
There you go. Um, a couple questions in the Q&A again regarding programming, and I think people just want to discern between what's packaged and given by affiliation with HYROX versus the program, and you, John. So if you are already an affiliate with HYROX, do you
Hmm.
automatically get the HYROX 365, or is that something above and beyond additional that you have to subscribe to, or is it delivered like CAP?
I believe it's delivered like cap.
Okay. And then I'm only going to reiterate this, or not reiterate this, but ask this because I saw the question two more times since I think you answered it. What would you say separates the program, what you guys do, what you guys put out versus the regular HYROX 365?
I think it's just that we're very specific for the type of gym that we're catering to. So we don't cater to the Globo gyms or these big franchises. We make more cater to a micro gym, a gym that maybe has a bit more limited equipment, smaller membership or space sizes.
Yep.
And although both may be programming high rocks, you just can't apply two programs across such a huge different set of criteria or needs.
That makes sense. Yeah. So just to recap, and let me know if I'm wrong, or let me know if I miss a step. If a gym owner is interested in exploring the viability of HYROX as a new program at their facility, at their business, the first thing that you recommend they do is to poll their current membership, right? Put out a survey and get some general feedback, along with maybe the questions in the sample survey that you initially, yep, that thing right there. And
Yeah.
after they get that information back, let's say they get enough data to support their decision, like, hey, okay, this is something that we have interest in. I'm gonna take the plunge and we're gonna build this program. The next thing you think they need to do is ensure that they have the appropriate amount of equipment, uh, and perhaps space to run the program. And that's on the next slide. Yep, where you give that list. I love that. Then what? It would just go probably make sense to subscribe to your programming or at least get the HYROX 365 or some sort of programming that's going to facilitate a solid training experience, right?
Yeah, so I think the next stage, if you're to combine them a bit more, one, it's making sure that your product's on point.
Yeah.
And your product is the programming and really the coaching education that's delivering that. So, you've got interest, you've got the space and the equipment needs. You then know that you can deliver a good product. The next stage would then come on to marketing that it's going to be available. And I think we jump this actually to the last slide, but a great way of doing this is via an event. Some kind of simulation is a great way to start and just build a bit of momentum there. Um, and
So
then, yes, there's also this idea of leveraging other like kind of official High Rocks events for people maybe to travel to or just have a bit of a focus for an actual race in 3 to 6 months' time. Maybe you pick one that, okay, we're going to go in for this event in this city, and then get the members, see who wants to sign up. The nice thing is you can do doubles, you can do relay. There's all different options that people can do like at the High Rocks event.
cool. I like that. So that's it's something that is similar to building excitement about the open year round is like there's always something to look forward to. There's always something to train for. It gives a little bit more what's the word I'm looking for? Relevant purpose. If that's actually weak, because I think there's plenty of relevant purpose to CrossFit training, but because there's a imminent event potentially, it gives something closer on the horizon to shoot for if if people are training for her HYROX, which is a huge motivator in training. That's very cool. I love this stuff. John, I'm getting a lot of requests for this info. Is it possible that we can get this slide show and send it out in the follow-up email so that people can review this stuff?
Yeah, exactly. We'll have like a bit of a package we can put together for people on the call and send any questions. And also, people feel free to send a message and ask us. We'll put our email in there as well, so they can just reach out if they have any questions or concerns.
Perfect. So, guys, we're going to wrap up right here. And I just want to let everyone know that if you register for the call, if you're on the call, that you will be getting the information that John was just talking about. There's also a quick survey at the end of this to give us some insight as to where you're at with implementing a HYROX program, if you want to do it at all, or if you need a little bit more guidance with the programming and the setup of the business aspect. So go ahead, fill out that survey at the end. But John, I want to thank you for hopping on and doing part two of the series. Part three, which again, I will let you guys know in the follow-up email when that's going to be. But we're going to talk about how to scale and grow the program after initially launching it. Correct, John? That's what we're going to go for.
Yeah, exactly. It's like how do you kind of take if we're going to look at the stages of what is getting to understand high rocks, the next stage is getting it starting to work in your gym, and the next idea would be how you start to build and grow on that early success.
Perfect. That's awesome. I'm super stoked to see or to hear from you on that. And I just wanted to say thank you for coming on out. Hopefully everyone took a bunch of stuff away from this call. I know I certainly did. Look for that email, that follow-up email within the next few days, and see you next time. Thanks again. Take care, John. Talk to you soon.
Thank you.